So this exercise is an example in the power of mimicking. Some of you might be very, very comfortable in code, and the idea of adding in symbol tables, maps, dictionaries, whatever you want to call them, might be straightforward and pretty easy. Others of you might be forgetting a lot of Java details and tool details and stuff, having spent some time away over break, summer, week, month, year, however long you've been since you've done this blast. So the idea behind this is to show you that it's okay to follow along somebody else's work as a way of improving your skills and refreshing your mind, and using demos as a way of basically getting better yourself better and ready and prepared to be able to do it on your own. It's a great way to remind yourself of not just basics in code, but to inspire yourself on new ways of solving problems using design. And in this case, you get credit for it as well. If you build this application exactly as I build it and turn it in, you can get points for it in this case. But you have to do that work yourself. You can't just find some source, copy paste it, submit it. That's not really super honest. To get the most benefit, to get any real benefit of it, you really should be coding this as it goes. So you're allowed to follow along throughout. Now there is if you see here, a description here. And I did a description here in some detail to help you read through and see how that description, what I put out there, ties to the code that we're going to build. And that hopefully will help you make those connections on the rest of the problems throughout the class, much less the rest of these exercises on symbol tables. So I encourage you to pause this if you haven't looked at it, and download this PDF document and read it. I'm not going to go through it in any detail here because that's it's up to you to make that connection in your brain, what those things mean and what they turn into in code. But there is that description out there. You also need to go through and download this. So you might want to do that in the meantime offload line while you pause this and go back and look at this. And so when you go through and you download that, it's going to open it up into my downloads folder. I did this in another video, but if you haven't seen that one yet, I actually am going to, let me put this into my C eDrive/Java. This is where my projects go for this. I'm going to drag and drop it over there. And it's going to copy it into, you see my map apps now here. This is all the code. This is for 4 problems. So now, once I have that, then I can come to my Eclipse, and I can say open projects from the file system. And I can go to that directory. So if I go back down to my eDrive, Java, map apps, and I say select folder, it will import this one for me. And you can actually see the leftover calculator, the video I did earlier in the day. You might have watched that one recently. But now I have my application open. And if I look at the source, I have all 4 applications that are available this week, or at least at this point in the time, 4. There might be more if this recording lasts for a while. But the one this is about is this Raffle application. So what I want you to do now is, if you haven't read it already, pause this and go back and make sure you understand the problem. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit more here in a second. So pause this now. Okay, so I didn't want to split this into another video. We're only 3 minutes in. But the idea behind this is to manage potentially duplicate submissions to a raffle. Ideally in the world, everything has a unique ID. We only ever see it submitted once. If it gets submitted again, we can reject it. But that's not always entirely fair. Think of your annual taxes. Theoretically, you should be the only one submitting your taxes, but a new scam that's emerged over the last few years is other people submitting taxes on behalf of a taxpayer and using the electronic submission of money, the return of money, to submit your tax return to them instead of to you. And so if the IRS made the rule, at least in the United States, the Internal Revenue Service is the organization that collects the taxes. If they made the rule that only one tax return can be submitted, well, it's just a matter of whether you submit your tax return before the fraudsters or not. If they happen to submit it first, you're out of luck. So they have to be able to submit even fraudulent tickets, but I want to be able to track which one's been submitted. And that's, in a small form, kind of what we're doing here with the Raffle application. So the application I gave you has no data structures inside of it, but we've got to figure out and build those on the fly. And so the very simplest data structure we can track is a list of everything that gets submitted. That doesn't solve all the problems we need to do. It just solves some of the problems, but that is one of the things that could work. But really, the idea of this exercise is a combination of list, set, and maps in the Java sense, symbol tables in the book sense, to help solve this problem. I'm hoping that some of you will take a shot at this without necessarily following along. If you follow along, it's no shame. There's nothing wrong with that. But even if you plan to follow along, take a minute now. And I'm going to stop this video here in just a second. We'll go to another one. But take a minute now and think about how you would solve this problem. So how would I track the number of eligible entries and total tickets submitted? Remember, there's a difference here. Eligible entries are the first ticket submitted for each number, and then this is the total number of tickets submitted for each other. What data structures would help me track each of those when I call the add method for this? How do I pick a random ticket out of here? And then how do I get all the submissions for that ID? There's a couple data structures that play well into this problem, and I want you to think about, based off of your previous classwork and maybe what you've read. If you haven't done the reading, you might want to stop and do that as well, and come up to see what ideas you can come up with. If you can't, that's okay. It's not to say you didn't understand the material. You might understand the material well. You just maybe haven't used that material yet. In order to solve a problem like this. So that's the idea of what we're going to practice. So we're going to pick that up in the next video. So make sure you're all prepared, because the next video I'm going to hit the ground running and start coding.